Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. We're putting you on notice because TTT is going to be broadcasting two Venezuelan films on the 28th and 29th to celebrate the 126th anniversary of Venezuelan cinema. We're actually speaking with Venezuelan Ambassador Álvaro Enrique Sanchez Cordero, who tells us more. Greetings, Ambassador. How are you?
Fine, Mr. DK. I'm fine. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Definitely our pleasure. Tell us a little more about the National Day of Venezuelan Cinema and actually the 126th anniversary as well.
Correct. Yes. Thank you very much for the question. Indeed, Venezuela will be celebrating on the 28th of January, specifically, the 126th anniversary of Venezuelan cinema, because it was on the 28th of January, but of 1897, that the first ever motion picture was ever screened in Venezuela. Obviously, with the technology of the time, cinema was just beginning worldwide, but it marked a historical precedent in our history. From there on, Venezuela has been developing its own cinematography with a particular emphasis in the past 20, 25 years, 23 years, where even more emphasis has been placed on national cinematographic productions with our own themes, reflecting our own culture, our own history.
And that begs the question, what was happening before? Because it will be just more than a century and a quarter. But you said over this 33-year period, the themes are representing Venezuela a lot more. So what are some of those points that you can say, okay, well, at this point, this was happening leading up to these 33 years?
Yes. Well, if I had to place it into some kind of a historical context, I would say that in the 1990s, Venezuela went through a very, very difficult time across the board, in every aspect of society, because of neoliberalism. So basically, our economy was crippled, government spending came to a minimum, poverty went up tremendously, and of course, our arts and cultures were severely affected as well, our cinema too. To the point that something like an average 2 or 3 films a year were produced, whereas now is close to 30 films in 1 year. So it was little, very, very, very absolutely little, next to no money at all available for filmmakers in Venezuela. And, it coincided with a change of vision in our Venezuelan politics in the 1999, in the beginning of the 21st century, with the Bolivarian Revolution. Again, all across the board, our vision towards society changed. We basically got rid of neoliberalism, and the government started paying close attention to the development, human development of the people of the country, and that included the arts, that included cinema as well. And this is maybe in a nutshell why practically in the 21st century, the cinema industry in Venezuela has flourished tremendously.
And do you see more filmmakers entering the industry? Because it's a stark difference, 2 to 3 films a year versus 30. So what is the landscape like as it pertains to the amount of filmmakers who are in the industry at this point in time?
Yes, it's huge. For one thing, and perhaps this also has aided. What I explain now is perhaps the framework, which gave way to the Venezuelan Cinema Act that enabled our authorities to collect funds from producers, distributors, even from abroad who came to Venezuela or come to Venezuela showing or screening foreign films in order to be able to fund Venezuelan filmmakers. But based on that, I think there were 2 particular important elements that also aided in this movie development in Venezuela. One was the creation of our own film industry complex, kind of like our own Hollywood, if you want to put it that way. It's called La Villa del Cine, the cinema village, which is a tremendous. It was opened in 2007, so it's close to 15 years around there. And it's a whole complex that provides the facilities, the equipment, the resources, state of the art for Venezuelan producers to engage. And therefore, many more Venezuelan filmmakers were motivated to further their studies, to continue presenting projects and so on, because they were obviously it was more feasible for them to obtain funds and therefore accomplish their idea, their goals of creating movies. And this, if you multiply that for many artists who perhaps were simply were not motivated enough in the previous decade, then immediately they began to create cinema, and this increased our not only the number, the quantity of our productions, but also the quality, and as I said, the topics that we wanted to portray.
And I like the fact, because the last time we spoke, you mentioned the systema in terms of having policy, something that is regulated, that takes people from point A, carries them through something that is thought out and to the other side as a holistic, wholesome individual able to achieve certain things with certain competencies. You're saying the same thing from what I hear in terms of that village, to be that production village, so that people can carry out these things. You also said, though, that it happened in 2007, and this would have been 2 years after some legislation was passed to enable things like that to take place. So take me through that legislation. Thank you.
Yes, very good question. And this piece of legislation goes hand in glove with what I just explained about the neoliberalism decade, because in reality, we had a similar law, a similar piece of legislation from 1994, Venezuelan Cinema Act. Basically, the intention of the act was, again, to raise funds to help Venezuelan movie makers. But again, since we were so much constrained by foreign dictates in order to cripple basically our own industry, because the concept of neoliberalism is that you don't have to worry about anything, quote unquote, everything will be given to you. But in reality, that means that you cannot produce, everything has to be imported, government will spend less on social needs and so on. It's really a disaster. We lived through it for a little bit more than a decade. So when this piece of legislation came to our Congress, to our parliament in 1994, there was so much pressure from movie distributors from abroad who actually bribed legislators, MPs in Venezuela and so on. So they dropped an article, which was the article that mandated for different segments of society to contribute by a tax to this fund that will help in turn Venezuelan filmmakers. So it was only in 2005, practically 10 years after, now with the Bolivarian Revolution in place and so on, that this particular article was added. And actually a whole new law, a whole new act on the protection of Venezuelan cinema was created and passed. But this time we made sure that the articles that related to the raising of funds for Venezuelan movie makers was there.
And we're going to speak about that a little more when we return from this break. We are speaking with the Venezuelan ambassador, Álvaro Enrique Sanchez Cordero. Stay with us. We return with more. Welcome back. We are speaking with the Venezuelan ambassador, Álvaro Enrique Sanchez Cordero, and we're doing so because on the 28th of this month, it will be 126 years of Venezuelan cinema or Venezuelan film. And give me the difference, because yes, you started to itemize that change in the law in 2005. But if we want to say that because of X, Y happened, what are some of the differences that you see with that law being changed, as well as the financing and promotion of Cinema Fund?
Yes, overall, Mr. Dike, was a change of mentality, changing the outlook. Basically, practically the whole of the Venezuelan political spectrum changed for good after we call it the lost decade of the 1990s in Venezuela. We say goodbye to neoliberalism, and it was a new beginning, the 21st century, and therefore practically everything in our laws, in how we view society, where we want it to go, at least the majority of the population, according to democratic results, it was towards the inclusion, was towards the participation of the majority of the population, was for more sovereignty, for the security of our citizens, and so on. And all that has to do, of course, with our historical and cultural consciousness, which had also been affected during the terrible 1990s and years before. There was an agenda that was put in place purposely in order for Venezuelans not to be conscious about our origins, our roots, our heritage. And obviously, you cannot really develop, you cannot really think of constructing independence, sovereignty of a nation country, if you are not only in tune with your own realities, with your history, with your culture, but you actually learn to appreciate it. So based on that context, Mr. Dike, I think that this is where certain aspects of our culture came into place. You rightly mentioned the success of El Sistema. This is one of them. Indeed, even though El Sistema existed before before the 21st century, it began in the 1970s of the 20th century, but it was in the 21st century that much more government support was provided up until now. Similarly, with other forms of art, literature, painting, sculpture, dance, and so on, and also cinema. And this is why you see we have witnessed this explosion of movie creativity in the past 23 years that has been really amazing, especially, as I said, comparing it to what we unfortunately saw in the last decade of the 20th century.
But it's one thing to say, okay, well, there's been an explosion, so there is more creation happening. What is that reception like in terms of people saying, okay, well, this is something that we're looking at? What is that feedback like?
Very good question, Mr. Dike. Yes. Look, well, like anything else, there are people who obviously still have the perception that Venezuelan cinema is not good enough, that you compare Venezuelan cinema to, again, Hollywood, etc., and the quality is not there, and so on. That number of people are still there, but overall, I would say that even those who actually deny the progress of Venezuelan cinema have actually lately come to acknowledge the tremendous progress made. And also the numbers speak for themselves, because in lately, especially Venezuelan at the box office, we have seen an increase in terms of the revenues coming from people who actually attend Venezuelan films in large numbers. Also because the topics have varied. So it's not only historical movies and so on. Actually, we have done very well with some movies in terms of comedies, etc., and other forms of more perhaps soft kind of genre within cinema. But overall, there has been a lot more acceptance. in spite, as I said, in spite of the fact that, of course, the power of the Hollywood industry is difficult to match. But I believe that it's not about one or the other. I think both can coincide, but especially Venezuela and Latin American cinema, because that's also another good point. We in Venezuela, in this particular piece of legislation, enables not only for Venezuelan cinema to grow, but also for Latin American cinema to grow as well. So we actually support Latin American, Venezuelan cinema, and other kinds of cinema from India, from Nigeria, that is very common lately, and so on, in order to create what we believe should be the world, not a unipolar world, but more of a multi-diverse polarity in every sense of the word, but also in terms of arts, cultures, and cinema.
And I appreciate that point you make about being able to support and having this level of diversity. And in terms of support, the Bolivarian embassy has had the Sonidos de Venezuela, that has been a partnership with TTT in times past. There is a partnership that is happening on the day itself. So what are some of the things that are happening on the table that will be happening between yourself and TTT on the 28th and 29th?
Yes, thank you very much. Well, thanks to you, Mr. Dike, and to your wonderful team at TTT. Well, TTT Ltd will be broadcasting, will be a screening, showing two Venezuelan films, recent Venezuelan films on the 28th, which is the actual day of the 126th anniversary of Venezuelan cinema, and also the following day on the 29th, this Saturday and Sunday, 28th and 29th. The Saturday, TTT will be screening a very beautiful film. It's called Two Autumns in Paris. I can briefly tell you a little bit about it. And the following day, Sunday, the movie called Monday or Tuesday, Never on Sunday. By the way, this movie, Monday, Tuesday, Never on Sunday, was screened at the Ibero-American Film Festival here in Trinidad and Tobago that was put in place at Nally's, and it was very successful. Both at 8:30 p.m., I understand.
And this also makes me want to ask how individuals can have deeper ties, possibly learning Spanish. What are some of the other ways that we can engage with our neighbors through you?
Yes, also a very good question. I appreciate your question, Mr. Dike. Indeed, today, as a matter of fact, it happens that it coincides that it's on the same day, today, this evening, our Venezuelan Institute for Culture and Cooperation will open its doors again after the hiatus of the pandemic. So we are very happy to receive Trimbagonian students who will be coming starting this afternoon for Spanish and Venezuelan culture lessons. We're very excited about it. By the way, this year, 2023, is the 60th anniversary of the Venezuelan Institute for Culture and Cooperation in Trinidad and Tobago. And this is fantastic. We're very happy. This is also a way for us to promote our culture, our language, and something that we're planning to do, starting off with the screening by TTT of these two wonderful Venezuelan films, Two Autumns in Paris and Monday or Tuesday, Never on Sunday. We're planning to have once a month, kicking off this weekend. So kicking off this weekend, the last Friday or weekend of each month, we're planning to screen a Venezuelan film here at the embassy, where, of course, all people, spectators, Trimbagonian, Venezuelans, anyone can come and enjoy, because we have many films that are good quality and with good messages that we would like to share with the audience.
I'm very grateful that I asked the question, so we have something to look forward to on a monthly basis. But we want to thank you so much, Ambassador Álvaro Enrique Sanchez Cordero. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, I'm Dike Rostant. This has been In Depth with me. Thank you so much for joining us.